Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Worst Take. My name is Garland. I'm your host, aka the King of Bad Takes. Today, it is time for football. I've been waiting so long. In fact, I've been waiting 8 months to get back into football. And finally, we're back into the best season of the year. So, to celebrate the best season of the year, I'm going to be going over the Garland King of Bad Takes patented power rankings. Yes, I may not be the only power rankings, but I am the only correct power rankings. Today we're going to be going on a tier list. We got a couple tiers here. I'm just going to go over them pretty briefly. We have, starting at the bottom, the number one pick speed run, any percent. Moving up from there, we have teams that are missing the playoffs. I would probably give these teams around like a 10% chance to even make the playoffs. I think it's very unlikely that they will. Playoff copers are, of course, teams that, they have a chance. I would say like a 30% chance to maybe a 40% chance. But odds are they're probably just going to get beat out by slightly better teams. The playoff probable tier is teams that I think have a very solid chance, probably upwards around like a 70% chance of making the playoffs. Maybe like 60 to 70%. And, starting from playoff probable to upwards, I'm limiting it to the 14 teams that will be selected for the playoffs. Then we have Super Bowl contenders and Super Bowl favorites. Those are pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to be trying to keep it like one AFC, one NFC for each of those tiers. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the absolute worst motherfucking teams in the NFL. There is no contest and there's no question at all what team is the worst team. I want you guys to pause the video right now and see if you can guess the worst team in the NFL. I'll give you a hint. It's really, really, really not hard. You guys got your guesses in? Well, it's the fucking Giants. And, who would have thought? The Giants are ass. They have Daniel Jones. They have just nobody. The Neighbors looks fine, right? He looks like a good wide receiver. But Daniel Jones, as you guys will see in my quarterback video, which will be coming out tomorrow, is awful. He is probably the worst quarterback in the NFL, and it's not really a secret. They spent all their money on him. They have no hope. There's no hope. They don't even have Tyrod Taylor anymore. They have to rely on Tommy DeVito if they want to get anything done or sign a free agent. I don't even know. Is Carson Wentz still around? Who knows? Giants are cooked. They don't have a defense. They do not have an offense. Getting rid of Saquon Barkley is, it makes sense for them as a team and where they're at, but they're a joke. I don't think I need to go into much more detail. Similarly bad is the Carolina Panthers because, wow, they have maybe the second worst quarterback in the NFL. And Bryce Young, he looks awful. Really, I was sort of shocked at how bad he looked. I really did think that adding Deontay Johnson and a new head coach was kind of going to fix a lot of the problems that he was facing. But no, he just looks terrible. I mean, he cannot hit a wide open target. And I don't understand how he went number one overall. This is one of the worst moves any franchise has ever made, trading up for him. Like, honestly, I hope the entire organization gets flushed out. It is a poverty franchise. I feel so bad for Carolina fans. It's a beautiful state. At least you guys got that going for you. But, yeah, as of right now, you guys don't have a football team. This is just atrocious. It's really sad to watch. And finally, the last team that I have in the number one pick, speedrun, any percent category is actually the Washington football team. These guys suck as well, but there's actually hope. This is the one team that I can see climbing out of this tier, and maybe I'll have to make a new tier sort of in between. But yeah, the football team, or the Commanders, as some people like to call them, they have a lot of potential because Jaden Daniels was by far the best rookie on Sunday. He looked honestly really good out there. He's a great runner. He honestly, like, his passing wasn't that bad for what people would expect. It was better than like Bo Nix and Caleb Williams, who are not pure passers but are more likely to be pure passers and who are supposed to have better arms than Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels was the best quarterback of this rookie class on Sunday. So there's hope there. There's some serious hope that they've got their guy. He could be like an RG3, and I don't want to say that because obviously you know what happened, but he looks like RG3 out there. That's who he reminds me of, and it's giving me flashbacks, and I love it because 2012 is my favorite season of football ever. And coming up next, we're going to be moving out of the number one pick speed run category, and we're going to be going into the missing playoffs tier. The first team that I have down here is the Denver Broncos. Now listen, the Denver Broncos, they have Sean Payton. They have a rookie quarterback who's, trying to catch his groove. But in general, that offense is weak. It's extremely weak. It's underwhelming. There's not a lot of good receivers there. I don't think that Williams is really going to be able to, return to that peak that we saw him. It's kind of sad. Injuries kind of derailed his career. But that defense, it didn't hold up against the Seahawks, which is not a good sign. The Seahawks are a fine offense. No hate towards them, but realistically, after the first half, they just crumbled. Bo Nix did actually show a little bit of promise in the fourth quarter on that last drive. He actually started running the ball, which was insane that he wasn't doing beforehand. But that was good to see. He'll hopefully catch his rhythm, and maybe the Broncos will be a little bit better. I don't think that they're like dog shit, but they're not making playoffs this year. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. And coming up next, we actually have a bit of a shocker here to most people, mainly myself. I really had to swallow my pride here. This team, avoiding all bias is, was coming into the season supposedly one of the best teams in the NFL. And I really had to make that argument to some people who didn't see it. But we have the Tennessee Titans. These guys, it's kind of sad. I don't really want to talk about them too much. I think the main problem is that the guys are just too young. They're making too many mistakes. The offense honestly has some firepower, and it looks pretty solid. It looked good in the first half against the Bears, and then they kind of crumbled. Not really much to say. I mean, the big boys up front were chasing down Williams all day, and that was really nice. So I do have hope in the defense this year, a little bit more than last year, but God, yeah, it doesn't look good. If we're going to lose to the Bears like that, that's fucking embarrassing. So moving on, I have my old team, the New England Patriots. What a win for them, huh? It almost confirms exactly what I thought at the start of the season, that the Bengals are way, way, way overrated. But the New England, this is an incredible win. I don't think that this means that they're good. They're definitely still bad, but their defense is able to hold up and make some stops. I know that they got lucky with the drop touchdown into the fumble on the goal line, but even still, Jacoby Brissett, he looked fine. He wasn't great, but I mean, he was able to hold the offense down. The offense looked better under him than it has the last 2 years under fucking Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. So that's an improvement. Things are looking up for the Patriots, I'd say. Moving on, we have the Oakland Raiders, who kind of performed exactly how I thought that they would. Their defense was pretty stifling for a while there. I'm pretty sure they had the lead against the Chargers, but they're not good enough. Minshew is just not good enough of a quarterback. Even though he's got weapons, they just don't have that great of a run game anymore, and it's kind of a struggle for them. They're going to be kind of held back by their lack of offense and the main roles. But their defense looks really good, so I'm going to say that, yeah, they're missing the playoffs, but they're not the bottom tier of the teams. Then we have the Minnesota Vikings, who you look at Sam Darnold and you go, wow, he went 14 of 14 for 145 yards. This guy is incredible. How did nobody ever see this? And then you realize, oh, they were playing against the Giants, who have Adoree Jackson as their top cornerback. Yeah, this is sort of I don't want to say fraudulent win. I mean, they got the job done, but come on. I mean, they got a pick six. They totally rolled over them in the first half and then just kind of flattened out. Aaron Jones looks incredible. I mean, this was great to see. He looks back to form. I don't really know what I was expecting. Of course, it's Aaron Jones. He's always great. Jefferson didn't really get involved. I'd like to see him get involved more, but Vikings offense does look like it has some potential. Their defense, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. It's too early in the season. They play against the Giants. So, all right, moving on, we have the New Orleans Saints. And, yeah, these guys, they're bad, but they're not as bad as I thought they would be. Derek Carr, if Derek Carr is able to play like he did against the Panthers, which, again, it's not saying much. It's like Sam Darnold throwing over the fucking Giants here. If Derek Carr is able to play at that level, and get the ball out to his receivers who actually have some legitimate talent. Like Shaheed is my favorite fucking late draft fantasy player. This team is pretty dangerous offensively. Alvin Kamara still got it, and the defense is not necessarily like awful. Like it's solid. It's like middle of the road. So I would say that they have like a middle of the road offense, middle of the road defense. They're a middle of the road team, but that's just not good enough to make the playoffs in today's NFL. So that's why I have them missing the playoffs. Up next, we have the playoff Cobras tier. The first team I'm going to add up here is Jacksonville. They actually held their own, surprisingly, against Miami. Trevor Lawrence looked, solid for the first half, and then the offense just completely died out. I think that the Dolphins just really adjusted to what was going on, and they were able to come back in that game and secure the win. Not really much I want to say about the Jaguars. They're kind of bad. I mean, like, not obviously they're better than all the teams below them, but they're not like the superpower you would want them to be when you have a guy like Trevor Lawrence quarterbacking. Trevor Lawrence might be overrated. I'm just going to say that right now. You'll see in my quarterback list. But, I really do think the Jaguars are just kind of a disappointment in general. They should be in the playoffs almost every single year. You would expect, right? Like, that's kind of like the talk around them. But that's just kind of not really the case. Next up, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. And similarly to the Jaguars, you would think with Joe Burrow that this team is a perennial playoff threat. Now, when Joe Burrow's healthy, yeah, that's kind of the case. But they're lacking in other categories. It's not just Joe Burrow's health. Like, yeah, I had questions about Burrow's health coming into the year. I thought that he was going to play bad. He was not going to really throw the ball with the same amount of touch because of his, his arm injury. And his ankle injury was going to really prevent him from moving around the pocket. Some of that's true, but Joe Burrow looked fine. I mean, he laid out some pretty good passes. Honestly, though, I would fire Mike Gesicki for hitting that gritty after dropping that pass. That's got to be probably the worst thing to ever happen in football. I didn't think that he could actually top himself from the Dolphins one. Then he did it on the Patriots, and then he did it here, and it's just getting worse and worse. Hitting the gritty in 2024, that is the most like hockey American thing that you could ever do. Yeah, I mean, the Bengals, their defense is lacking. Like, it's been bad. Like, their defense has not been good. It was good for like 1 year, and that was the year they went to the Super Bowl. But other than that, like, the defense has just been so mid or like below mid. I mean, they had one of the worst defenses in the league last year, and people are expecting these guys to be like Super Bowl contenders with Joe Burrow back. I just don't see it. Like, yeah, they didn't have T. Higgins, but is T. Higgins gonna make the difference of beating the Patriots? Why do you need T. Higgins to beat the Patriots? You're supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. I'm not buying it. Bengals are gonna barely make the playoffs if they do make the playoffs. And again, I give them about a 30 to 40% chance to make the playoffs, more towards the 30% range. Coming up next, I have the Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears almost lost to the Titans. But again, this is Caleb Williams' first ever start. Titans did actually play pretty good defensively. And the Bears kind of did what they did last year, right? They just won off defense. They won off turnovers, they won off mistakes, which honestly, that's winning football in today's league. Defense is king right now. And the Bears have one of the best defenses in the league. It's kind of surprising to say that. And if Caleb Williams can catch a stride, then this team is really, really scary. They have the receiver threats. They have the running back. DeAndre Swift's. This team is definitely scary. I would say that they're probably going to win like 4 games in the first half of the season and then kind of turn it up in the second half of the season after their bye week. That's kind of like, I don't know where their bye week is, but I would say around the second half of the season they're going to win like 5, 6, 7 games and maybe make a sneaky late season playoff run. Coming after the Bears, I have the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are a weird team as well because I can really see them being pretty good this year. I mean, Anthony Richardson looked awesome. Like, those deep balls were beautiful. Off the balance, like, I'm not going to try to get into too much detail about quarterbacks here because I have a whole video about that coming out soon. But Anthony Richardson looked legit. I was kind of skeptical based off of his, like, very limited play time last season. But, no, the hype around him is real. And they have the receivers. They have the run game, obviously. Their O-line is still pretty solid. And their defense is not bad, honestly. It's the weak part of the team, but it's really not that bad. Up next, I have the Seattle Seahawks. I think that the Seahawks offense, like I said earlier, is pretty good. Geno Smith looked, fine. He's not back to form like 2 years ago, but their offense just looks pretty good. The good O-line, Kenneth Walker's a beast. They still have the great receiver core. Their defense is stacked in the secondary, like absolutely stacked in the secondary. Probably one of the best in the NFL. But the defensive front is where the problems are. Like, that is a big, big problem. They're just going to get ran over. So I think that they're going to have to really compete in like high flying games. They're going to have to really like set the tempo with scoring if they want to compete. And that really relies on Geno Smith. So, I mean, it really depends on how big of a believer you are in him. But if he plays really good this year, they're back in the playoffs. But if he doesn't, it's going to be pretty unlikely. Coming up next, we have another team that I thought was extremely overrated coming into the season. The New York Jets. Yeah, turns out a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers is not enough to carry Garrett Wilson and a bunch of Packers washed-up fucking retirees. This team is not like all that good. They added pieces to the offensive line. So that's a big improvement. Breece Hall is still great, but he dropped like 3 balls that should have been big gains. Allen Lazard dropped big passes. He ended up kind of turning up later in the night, but I mean, the drops were just everywhere. Aaron Rodgers is literally a statue in the pocket. He's still throwing the ball pretty good, but it's just not going to do it, especially when you have teams like the 49ers with Nick Bosa. And there's just so many good pass rushers in today's NFL. Like, Aaron Rodgers is going to get killed out there. He's going to have to get rid of the ball within the first second and a half every single play, and that's just not always going to be a viable option. Like, you have to be able to extend the play. The Jets defense is still good. It's very good, but I just don't think that they're going to be able to pull off enough wins. Like, their division is so competitive. I think that they're not really likely to make the playoffs. I would say, again, they're probably like a 40% chance to make the playoffs, in my opinion. But anyways, moving on. Another team that goddamn it, I wish I made a video on this before the season, because I knew that the Arizona Cardinals were going to be good. And I know I just said Jets are not that good, and I have the Cardinals right next to them. Good relative to what people believe. I have faith in Kyler Murray being that guy. When has he ever shown that he's bad? He's just been injured over and over again. And if he stays healthy with Marvin Harrison Jr., who, mind you, didn't do anything last week, and they almost beat the Bills, they're a dangerous team. Like, their offense is scary, extremely scary. Probably the best. Actually, not probably, the best offense in this tier that we're going to have. Their defense is, it's mediocre. It's really not that great, and that's why I don't have them higher. But their offense is seriously, seriously dangerous. Like, keep an eye out for that, because, again, as soon as Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison are able to really connect together, that's just going to be so nasty. Coming up, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Best Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback ever, Baker Mayfield, threw a lot of yards last Sunday and 4 touchdowns. Now, they did beat up on the poverty Commanders, but it's still pretty promising. They're kind of back to form. Their defense looks good. Their offense looks good. They kind of let up some garbage time points to the Commanders, but they're a pretty scary team. The reason why I only have them in the playoff Copers tier is because, like, last year, they had like 9 wins, and it's not like they got like all that much better this year. It's just kind of going to have to rely on Baker Mayfield like improving a lot, which it could happen, honestly. He looks pretty good out there. But the defense also needs to improve a little bit in order for them to like really be a playoff lock-in. They're pretty likely. I have them as like one of the most likely to make the playoffs out of this tier. Coming up, I have the Cleveland Browns. This was a very horrible loss for the Browns. It really disheartened me. I think that this was probably the worst case scenario. Deshaun Watson is dog shit. He's dead. He's done. There's no way that Deshaun Watson is ever coming back to his original form. He does not care about football anymore. I'm going to go more into detail about this later, but the Browns are in trouble if they keep Deshaun Watson on the field. Just fucking sit him. Throw in Jameis Winston. Throw in whoever. Okay, you are far more likely to win games if you have Jameis Winston at quarterback than Deshaun Watson, which is saying a lot. The defense still looks pretty good. The Cowboys kind of destroyed them, which was kind of a shocker for me. I kind of thought they were going to be able to kind of hold their own. But, I mean, when you're just given horrible field position every single drive because your offense can't do jack shit, it's kind of expected. Finally, we're moving into the teams that I think are going to be making the playoffs. The worst team that I think is going to make the playoffs this year is the Atlanta Falcons. And the Atlanta Falcons are like the Jets. They are actually just the Jets. They have an old-ass quarterback coming off an Achilles tear who's a statue in the pocket who can still throw the ball, pretty decently. They have a stacked wide receiver core. They have great running backs. Their defense is really good. But because the quarterback can't fucking move, they're dead in the water. They're just going to lose to good defenses. Like, the Falcons defense the Falcons defense held the Steelers to, no points, right? Obviously, the Steelers suck. But, offensively, the Steelers suck. But the Falcons offense just couldn't get anything going, which is a major, major concern. Too many turnovers. It just didn't look pretty. Now, maybe a lot of this stuff will work itself out once the team gets more chemistry together. But honestly, right now, the Falcons that was a pretty disappointing loss. I really thought Kirk Cousins was going to be really good this year, but defenses are just too good. Moving on, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, the team that beat the Falcons. Kind of no surprises here. It's the Steelers. They're perennial. They're exactly the same as they've been. It doesn't matter who's playing quarterback. It's fucking Kenny Pickett. It's Mason Rudolph. It's Ben Roethlisberger. It's Justin Fields. It's fucking Russell Wilson if he comes in. It doesn't matter. It's the Steelers. They're going to have a positive record. They're probably going to make the playoffs. They're probably going to be a first-round exit. But, TJ Watt is still, maybe a top 5 player in the NFL. So that's kind of why they're always going to be that good. The entirety of that defense is good, but yeah, honestly, they might be more scary this year than they have been before, with Najee Harris kind of developing and Justin Fields developing and George Pickens developing. The young talent on that team is really not that bad. Warren, another great running back there. They have potential. It's just again, what's your ceiling with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson as your quarterback room? Do you have that high of a ceiling? I don't think so. Next team in the playoff probable is a team that kind of shocked me, is the LA Rams. I really thought that the Rams were going to be a lot like the Falcons and a lot like the Jets, but Matthew Stafford actually looked better than those two. He did play against the Lions, which again is a trash passing defense, but the Rams, they looked solid. Without Puka Nacua, he was able to connect with Cooper Kupp again, which looked great. I'm glad to see Cooper Kupp's back fully healthy. But Matthew Stafford, he looks good. He looks very good. Kyren Williams, a good offensive line. The defense looked fine out there, honestly. Even though they lost, it was really just fatigue. Overtime kind of does that to you. It's kind of hopeful for the Rams. They can make it back to the playoffs. All right, coming up next, we have the San Diego Chargers. This team is good. It's just really good. J.K. Dobbins is a fucking animal. We knew that Harbaugh was going to be running the ball like crazy. And there he went. Just run the ball. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins. They went insane this game. The Raiders are, their defense is really nothing to scoff at. Defensively, the Chargers didn't really have to do anything too impressive. They were against Gardner Minshew. But I do have faith that once Justin Herbert gets used to this new offense, he's going to really start to make some connections with his young receivers. So, people shit on that receiver core. Quentin Johnston maybe deserves it a little bit. But, he was a rookie playing in a position that he didn't play in college. And it's kind of hard to tell, right? You got to give those things time. And also having Brandon Staley as your head coach is the worst telling you could ever have. So I have faith that the Chargers are going to make it back to the playoffs. Either, probably this year. But, you never know. They're a cursed franchise. Moving up to the next spot on our list, we have the Miami Dolphins. Miami looked very bad in the first half of this game against the Jaguars, but they kind of tightened it up. It's the same Dolphins. I don't really want to spend too much time on them. Tua looks good again. Tyreek Hill's a fucking animal, even though he, had some altercations heading into the game, and that might maybe affected the first half. We don't really know, but Dolphins are going to be good. That's kind of just a given. Now, coming up next, I have the Buffalo Bills, and this is probably a little bit contentious of a place to put the Bills, but I really do think that they are a very good team, like a really good team. They, even though they lost their entire receiver core, I don't think that matters. I just don't like Gabe Davis. I think Gabe Davis is not good. I think he's a very mid-wide receiver, and he had that great playoff game. He's had a couple games here and there where he's just blown up, but every other time he just disappears. And it's really not that big of a loss because he's probably wanting a lot of money because for some reason he's a high-profile wide receiver in the NFL, which blows my fucking mind. And really, he just rides off the coattails of Josh Allen. You have one of the best arm talents, leg talents to ever play the quarterback position in NFL history, throwing you the ball, and for some reason, Gabe Davis gets all the credit, and he goes away, and everybody thinks Josh Allen's all of a sudden going to suck. No, it's Josh Allen. He's arguably one of the best players in the NFL. He's probably like top 3. But yeah, the Bills are just going to be good. It's impossible to have that quarterback and be a bad team, in my opinion. They're going to make the playoffs. I can't see them not making the playoffs. Them fending off the Cardinals, locking down and really coming into full force, after the first quarter was really impressive to watch. They really ran up the score on them, and I think that it's not a great defense, the Cardinals, but, Shakir looked good. He was really fighting out there. He's always going to give you that energy. The Bills look like, again, a scary team. They're going to be in the playoffs. Moving on, we have the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Cowboys fans, type out your comments, but hear me out. The Cowboys, they have one issue that's keeping them out of Super Bowl contenders. They can't make it to an NFC championship game. You're not a contender if you cannot make it to a championship game. It's not going to happen. It's going to take a miracle to happen. They are a cursed franchise. Cursed franchise. They're like the Chargers, right? The Chargers are like the wild card masters, and the Cowboys are like the divisional round masters. No matter what, these teams just never make it, no matter how good they are. And the Cowboys, they're not a contender. They're great. They're a phenomenal team. They're going to win 12, 13 games. Wow. Dak Prescott's going to have another MVP-like season. Wow. Are they going to win a playoff game? Maybe. Are they going to win 2 playoff games? No. Are they going to make it to the Super Bowl? Absolutely fucking not. They're not doing it. It's not going to happen. Not until Jerry Jones croaks. Moving on, I have the better Texas team, and that is the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud looked shaky, honestly, this game, but it didn't really matter. I mean, the 2 interceptions he threw both got called back for penalties, which is pretty lucky. But, Stephon Diggs is a good addition. He didn't really have that great of a game. He caught 2 touchdowns, but they were kind of, short yardage. And, again, it kind of proves the point that Stephon Diggs was kind of washed last year, and he's still not like peak Stephon Diggs. He's still a good receiver. I'm not saying he's a bad receiver, but he's not like he's like a DeAndre Hopkins on the Titans, right? He's still a good receiver. He's just not like he was, back in his Vikings era and his early Bills era. So it kind of backs up the statement that, Josh Allen losing these receivers is not as big of a deal as people think. But anyways, Nico Collins is a phenomenal wide receiver. Everybody kind of expected Texans to be back, and I mean it was a tight game. It's a divisional game. It's going to be a gritty one, but Texans really did show out. Their defense is just so young. It's always improving, and I'm really not surprised by the Texans being this high. CJ Stroud he's pretty legit. Next up, we have the Super Bowl contenders, tier. If you guys are surprised by my final six, please leave a comment on who you would think are your Super Bowl contenders. But in general, these are the guys that I expect to make the NFC Championship game. So first team I have down here, and the weakest team that I think is a contender, is the Detroit Lions. And I'm sorry, Lions fans. I'm sorry, Hard Knocks fans. I'm sorry, Dan Campbell fans. I still don't believe in Dan Campbell. I think that he is a good head coach. He's a good motivator. But really, Ben Johnson is carrying that offense. He really, really is. He is so far ahead of his time. Right now, the Lions are creating the future of the NFL. They really, really are. With their schemes, the way they're running their receivers, the way that they're running their mixture of offense is just so far ahead of the game that their offense is just so elite. It's probably the second or third best offense in the NFL. Just because they don't really have that star power that some of the other ones do. St. Brown is obviously probably the star of the offense along with Jahmyr Gibbs, but St. Brown is not really like a superstar in my opinion. Like, he's good. He's great actually, but he's not like a top 5 wide receiver. Jared Goff is Jared Goff. He's going to make mistakes. I'm not saying that he's incapable of bringing you to a Super Bowl. That's why I still have him in contenders, because obviously Goff has been to a Super Bowl. He's been to an NFC Championship game. He's been to multiple, actually, championship games. He's got playoff experience. Don't sleep on Goff. He's good enough to get you there. It's just, can you win with him? We don't know. We don't know if Goff is able to turn it up in those big games, because obviously last time he went there, he sucked total fucking balls. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers. Forgot to mention about the Lions. The reason why they're kind of low is the passing defense still sucks ass. The run defense is fine, though. Packers. So the Green Bay Packers are so stupid, and I hate them, because every single fucking time that they lose their quarterback, they get a new one, and it's not fair. But this time, Jordan Love was lost, sadly. But he will be coming back. It's just a sprain, so it's really not that bad. But it's kind of disappointing. You really want to see the guy's development. But in general, this team is just all around stacked. They just have one of the deepest receiver rooms in the NFL, probably the deepest. Every single player from like 1 through 5 is a very good multi-role wide receiver. And Jordan Love is a good quarterback. And they have, a pretty solid run game. They're going to be fine without Jordan Love for a few games. But when he comes back, this team's going to be right back on it. Right in after the Green Bay Packers, the Philadelphia Eagles. This team is kind of like unfair on paper. Like, Saquon Barkley just adds so much that this team was missing. Because, DeAndre Swift is mid, as we should all know by now. Saquon Barkley adds a lot to this team. I mean, the receiving threat that he is just ridiculous. He literally ran a fade route. What fucking running back in the NFL is running a goddamn fade route? It's not happening, ever. I just expect this team to be really strong offensively. The only issue is Nick Sirianni going to be a good head coach and admit his own failures and own up to things and try to improve the team? Or is he just going to sit there and cross his fucking arms and be like, I don't know what's wrong with the team. Well, I guess we'll find out next year when they have a contender. Just fix it. If you have a problem with the team, fix it. Find out what's going on and fix it. Because if you don't fix it, guess what? You should be fired, because that's your job. Your job is to fix what's going bad. I don't even want to get in the Nick Sirianni conversation right now. But when the team is good, he's a good head coach. When the team is struggling, he seems to lose all accountability. So, anyways, moving on. We have the other birds, the Ravens. Sadly, the Ravens lost to the Chiefs, or else I would have had them in the Super Bowl favorites. It was my my pick to put the Ravens back up in there this year. But, yeah, I mean, this team, again, is just unfair on paper. It's Lamar Jackson. It's Derrick Henry, who's a little old, yes. The offensive line is still stacked. They still have the great offensive scheming that they've always had, and great head coach. And the wide receiver guru is really improving. Isaiah Likely is looking very good. Mark Andrews is still in the background, which is insane to have Mark Andrews as your backup tight end right now, who is like still a top 10, top 15 tight end in the NFL. And he's your second option because Isaiah Likely is such a freak athlete. But yeah, Lamar Jackson's probably going to have another MVP season, or an MVP caliber season. And the Ravens defense is just incredible as always. Moving on to the Super Bowl favorites. This should be no surprise to anybody. I'm just going to throw them up there in the order that you guys probably already expected. It's the 49ers. It's the Chiefs. I know it's extremely boring, and I hate it. But fall for pumpkin season. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about that. The 49ers are exactly who they were last year. Brock Purdy is elite. I don't care what anybody says. Christian McCaffrey is obviously the best running back in the NFL. They're just stacked. They're fucking stupid. They're not even a fair team. And the Kansas City Chiefs are also not a fair team. Patrick Mahomes is, arguably right now the best quarterback in the NFL. He's like, resume-wise, absolutely is. Playoffs-wise, without a doubt, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. So, when it comes to playoffs, they have the best quarterback in the NFL. They have some of the fastest receivers. Their defense is so stupid and not fair. This team is not fair. Their offensive line holds on every single fucking play, and it doesn't matter because it's the Chiefs. They can get away with literally anything, and their multi-million-dollar super baby needs to be protected. Yeah, they're literally the only team that's a 12v11, so they're kind of just the best team because that's how it goes. Anyways, if you motherfuckers enjoy this video, I'm going to be releasing another one next week, and I'm going to be releasing my quarterback ranking tomorrow. So I hope you guys had at least a little bit of fun listening to me yap about your favorite teams. If you guys have any disagreements with any of my rankings, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear them and read them and ignore them because you're wrong and I'm right because I am the king of bad takes. Anyways, guys, it's been a pleasure. Have a great night.